And we're back. Yes, sirree. Okay. We got an introduction of a new character, the Russian bear. I like that. The Russian bear. All right. Shit, look who's here. The mighty Luke Mason. Hey, I want to thank you for your reply on my the question I posted on Telegram. It was a good reply, good thoughtful reply. Very hot topic. I know it's like one of those topics that you're not supposed to bring up because you know there's always somebody that's going to get angry. You know what I mean? It's like, oh shit, you know. But I think it's an important subject that we got to figure out if we plan on winning this war for survival. You know, uh, actually, a commercial comes on just as I'm about to get into it. Hold on a second. Oh, shut up. Oh, it's about estrogen and birth control. Wow, perfect. There's this really interesting interview that I saw today, and it's going to be hard for me to like paraphrase all of it while I'm using 50% of my brain to do this, or whatever. But there's an Australian woman who she I don't know if she's friends or she's somehow connected to Edward Dutton. So when I say the name Edward Dutton, you should know kind of like what we're talking about, like the field of people who are like into interpreting data, scientific research on the death of Western civilization, to put it like in super paraphrase it. And so she's very, very big brain, you know, uh, but also I would say she didn't say anything like explicitly sort of far rightish, you know, in the kind of Uncle A sense of the word or whatever. But um, she's very, very, very anti-feminist, anti-woke, and goes on to discuss the jolly hair to get. She goes on to discuss a theory that she's working on and publishing about women's behavior. And it's the kind of thing that like only a woman could publish on a subject like this. Um, what she's in a nutshell, I think we're gonna have to turn this music down because I can't even hear my own thoughts here. Hold on a second, and we'll get into this as you look at the Russian bear revealing his nuclear bomb. Um, all right, hang in there, hang in there. We're getting there, folks. We're gonna get into the hot topics. So, to take like an hour or 2 hour long lecture and then spin it down into one or two sentences is very, very unfair to her and the topic itself. But um, there's a. I'm trying to get to the meat here. She says it's something to do with the culture of women, that like men and women are different in the sense that women Men are individualistic and women are about networks. So a woman's place or worth or power in society is intrinsically linked to the network of women that she's associated with, and that women are extremely catty and controlling in this way, that if they're, they that's why they're prone to conform much more easily than men. Things are seen through an emotional lens. They're seen through a lens of, you know, does the collective consent to this? Because if they don't, then I can't agree with it. You see what I mean? It's not about individual thought, like, does this make sense? What's the data behind this? It's more about, will I be ostracized from the network if I go against this theme? And so she's saying that women with higher resources for reproduction, for having more babies, have essentially led this woke brigade against women with lower resources to uh and then she had a really great expression for this, which I don't remember, but it's something to do with like a malicious strategy to stop women from procreating. That's the general meaning of it. The phrase that she had come up with was much cooler than that. But think about this, like a malicious sort of eugenics type, I don't know, fucking program. What would you even call it? Where women kind of police other women into not having babies through, feminism, girl boss, LGBT, misplaced altruism, with the kind of like all the motherhood instinct goes towards to caring for poor people, people of color. And a lot of us in the movement have already done our research, and we know, we're familiar with many of these ideas. My criticism of the whole thing is that while people say, oh, this is normal, all civilizations have these patterns, and Edward Dutton and this woman also have that. They seem to follow that theory that civilizations rise and fall. And these are kind of natural patterns that, in a sense, can't be stopped because they're natural. And I'm like, fuck that. This is Marxism. This is an intentional uh, war on whites. And it was all designed by the Frankfurt School, of Jewish Marxists. They knew what they were doing. This is all pre-programmed. None of this is by accident. There may be actual, I don't know, some kind of actual natural cycles in which civilizations fall. But to me, what we're going through is totally manufactured. It's totally man-made. And but I often say that liberal white women are the managerial class of the death of Western civilization, and I mean that wholeheartedly. And then anyway, with the things that she was explaining in the her lecture, I was having a lot of epiphanies about, oh, and it's like I've been paying attention to this for a long time, and thinking about this, studying this for a long time, and applying the knowledge to my life, and people I meet, and this and that. There's a side of you that's like so fucking frustrated with it that it's easier just to insult these people and move on or whatever. But there's a kind of science to it as well. There's a type of female science, if you will, for lack of a better term. And it has something to do with the competitiveness that women have with each other. And so, I'm not sort of trying to be misogynistic or whatever by saying these things. I think that a lot of women would agree that there's a type of like henpecking order, to things, and a type of, you know, who's the alpha female or whatever, whatever. Um, excuse me. Um, but the idea of like somehow convincing other women to stop breeding, to me is pretty fucking dark. That's pretty fucking dark. But if you look at it from this kind of feminine perspective, the ability to breed is the like the core aspect of the female identity. You know what I mean? And in many ways, their power. And I don't say that term power in a like a negative sense. So there's this kind of like the way it was described in the lecture. They kept talking about like the divine feminine and how it's a type of a cosmic force per se, that exists. I mean, I could be conflating that a little bit with some conversations I had, because I took the link and I shared it with a lot of people in our political network, my network, and I have a lot of positive, smart based trad wife type female friends out there, which I'm happy to say. Um, Lovely women. I love them. I adore them all. And so far, all of them have had very intelligent things to say about this and have responded in a really affirmative way. Like, the way that a lot of them see it though is they box it in with the left. Like, that's the left. And the left are made up of people who are kind of the dregs of society. They can't compete in one form or another. They're not successful, therefore they try to destroy the system, or they fall for Marxist ideas. And I can agree with that. I don't think that's entirely true, but it seems to be generally true. Um, a woman who is kind of an alpha female and has the ability to attract a good male and reproduce is not going to be interested in the ideas of destroying society, because it goes against her evolutionary strategy of having a society that her kids can grow up in safely and thrive in. So it's a very interesting topic. Let me read some chat here. Hold on. Show. Let's get into some chatteroonies here. Hold your horses. We got to get back to where you once belong. Luke Mason says women play life on easy mode so they can say anything. That's an interesting phrase or an interesting comment. Yep, men, we're on our own. Women, welcome to the sisterhood, fellow. Yes, queen. Yeah, that's. I mean, there's gonna be some bitter feelings. Believe me, of all the people in the room, I've got some hardcore bitterness about feminism, and I try not to do the whole like all women are this, all women are that, but simultaneously, women and men do have natures. We have a nature. There is you know, in hermetics, there's the law of gender. You know what I'm saying? So like, hermetics being like the most ancient philosophy known to man, out of ancient Egypt, the law of gender, that everything in nature has a kind of gender dichotomy, and it's a sort of yin yang type thing. But anyway, moving on. Hello to Mr. Kolavarat. You changed your name. Hello. Mason says totally intentional. The whole reason women were given power and agency was to hamstring white men. This is 100% true. But I mean, if you look at the whole feminist movement was created, not created, led by really nasty ugly looking Jewish women. I mean, if you look at any photos of, like Susan Sontag or any of these kind of like monsters, they're absolute hags, like complete, like just ghastly, Um, but I remember being in college and like all the fancy language they have. College girls they're high school kids that with overgrown uh sexuality. They fall for all this fancy talk. Um and there's something about college kids that like communists love because they can turn them into the foot soldiers of the revolution. Mao is famous for that with his Red Guard. They were some of the worst people in Chinese history, the Red Guard. I mean, I don't turn the show into that because that's some ugly shit. Just torturing, killing professors, and destroying their own culture. And imagine if like kids ruled the world, and they were psychotic and like they had all the power. So it throws it again, and that's inversion, right? The left is all about inversion, right? So feminism is about inversion. Let's move on. James Chilson is here. Welcome, James. Great to have you here. That's true, but that doesn't mean that the role of each gender can't be broken. So that's the big question. That's sort of where I'm kind of headed in terms of like I think that it's like if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. Like, if gender roles worked for hundreds or thousands of years, why are we questioning them, right? And granted, times have changed. You got the Industrial Revolution, blah 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 blah, this and that. Um, but it's a slippery slope. It really is a very, very slippery slope. Women statistically vote for things en masse that are overall harmful for society. This is just data. This is not opinion. And if granted, I'm assuming that the listeners of my show are up to date on such things. There's a standard of just like knowing what's going on out there. And so this is a statistical reality. Um, if, on the other hand, society was structured in such a way that we didn't rely on voting and putting our fate in the hands of like groups or individuals that don't have our best interest in mind, and women were automatically protected by the law, by the system, to have whatever their needs met, then what why would women want to be engaged in politics if it's like, okay, these basic things are cared for, they're taken care of. Not only that, but incentivized. Uncle A, I believe, well, I know that there's certain countries, for example, that give money or tax breaks to families for the more kids they have. I believe they do that in Hungary, for example. Um, there's such policies out there. Now these policies are third position. Third position. What is that? It's neither communist nor capitalist. National Socialism, Italian Fascism, Spanish Syndicalism. These were the ideological systems that put family first, not all this fucking talk, you know, all talk, it's all fucking talk, families first, that's it. Anyway, that's another rabbit hole that we can just, it's filled with spider webs and we can all get caught in a big debate about minutia and stuff and that. So there it is. But let's read some chatteroonies here. I've got to learn how to say that correctly. Kolovrat. Mr. Kolovrat. Nope. YouTube is now showing channel tags instead of usernames. I'm still Rexus. Okay, that's weird. But that's my username, not my tag. Okay, well, YouTube is goofy. Luke Mason says, I mean, if they're so strong and independent, why did power have to be given to them? weren't they powerful enough to take it by force? So obviously, I know there's a bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge here, that women's rights are only as good as the men who enforce them, and this is just another one of those facts that's the kind of a thing. Um, who's in charge of like pouring or not? Well, in charge of who supports pouring in millions of immigrants into the country? It's women, and of course not just white liberal women, but there's a thing there. There's a thing there. When you take away the normal gender role, it's funny because just the word term gender role sounds like a dirty word. It's like, are you talking about gender roles? Like, oh, you don't have a vagina, therefore you cannot talk about gender roles. That's what I would be told by a leftist right now. That's a crappy marker. Um, but yeah, this whole like laws are only as good as their enforcement, and I don't know. It's I'm not debating women's intellectual capacity to understand an issue and or sort of moral capacity to choose. Although that's more in question than the intellectual capacity, because if you know something's wrong but you vote for it anyway because the sisterhood told you to, then you're, in my opinion, a retard. You know what I mean? And you shouldn't be allowed to vote. And that goes for men as well. You see what I'm saying? So this opens up another side of the discussion. Like, I know liberal men, from the city, and I go dancing on the weekends, and it's city culture. And I see a lot of the really stupid, terrible behaviors that they have, that essentially, if you're a liberal or you live in a liberal environment, it's female dominated. It is a matriarchal society, and women walk around like they own the fucking world. I shit you not. Like, if you're in a conservative bubble, you live in the countryside or something, and you go into the city and you start to get familiar with just the norms of their liberal culture, you'll see a type of arrogance. I've literally been talked down to by liberal women as if like I'm a boy. I'm like I'm a 10-year-old boy just because I'm a man. Like, and they do that for a show to each other. They're like, "Did you see the way that I talked down to him?" You get my point? So it's a power play. It's a little performance that they do, and have many little subtle cues and messaging systems. The way that they pronounce things, the way that they affect their little, the way they make their s's sound, and there's a lot of stuff that men don't really pick up on and or just think is irritating and ignore. But it's its own culture, and I don't know. I suppose it's natural, but I don't think it's healthy, if that makes sense. um there's just it's this weird kind of, men are stupid and evil. They're just resources. They're not human beings. Only women are human beings, and you are free to use every single possible tool, technique, trick, lie, any fucking thing you can possibly do to get those resources. And there's no shame in it at all. So, like, this thing about shame is one of the most powerful things of all. Like, if, the idea, because what is a lot of Christianity has to do with shame. You know what I'm saying? And like the idea of like, I don't want to feel ashamed of what I did or what I want to do. I mean, that opens up another can of worms, bringing in the topic of Christianity. But, it is sort of part of the history of, Western culture and how things have gone, excuse me. Um, So I'm really just in a kind of a like observational mode. I'm thinking through all of these things, and what do they mean, looking at personal experiences and kind of going, from that perspective, this thing makes sense now, whatever the thing might be. Um, it doesn't make it less irritating, or you know, make me less angry about it or whatever. But the question then is again like, well, what do we do about it? Like what's the answer to the problem? Because it seems to me like once women have this kind of like once they're in this leftist mind plantation or whatever you want to call it, like how do you get out? How whatever would make them change, see beyond it. Presumably these women are going to grow old and even more bitter as they, their eggs dry up and they see other women have kids and blah de blah and all of that stuff. And I would say that they're going to be even more radical as they get older. They're going to be like wildly radical. Like, they could be dangerous. They could be like a force for great danger. And I think that already exists in Antifa. Um, when you go and see these protests, it's a lot of the times it's these like middle-aged to boomer age white liberal women that are some of the most like vociferous people out there that are really really calling for violence and like have no control at all. Like they might not have the capacity to do great violence like a man, but they sure can create, the environment for that, if that makes sense. Yeah. Let's read some comments. I don't think there are any more comments here. Yeah. Well, interesting stuff. And I sincerely am reaching out to my trad right wing ladies with like what should we do? Like what's this? What are your thoughts about this? And how can it be fixed? Um, but it's an interesting indicator about social. Oh boy, social control, the power of sociology. I don't know what I'm trying to say, like social behavior, social norms. I've never really been, I don't know how to put it, I've never really cared about that. I'm free from that influence, if that makes sense. Um, I figured that shit out when I was in fucking junior high, when I was like 14. And I'm like, this is really stupid. I'm not gonna just go along with the crowd because they'd say I should or whatever. Like that's imbecilic. But unfortunately, I came to discover, oh fuck, I'm the only one in the world who's doing this. Not the only, but there's very rare times when you meet someone else who gets it and is not like a slave to that conformity matrix, peer pressure control. Then it's like, oh my god, how refreshing. Um, yeah, and it's an ongoing thing. Every new generation is going to have it. Every new generation is going to be like, how do I fit in? And who's going to determine those things? You know what I'm saying? Who's going to say what's right? Who's going to lead? Hmm. I guess what I'm kind of indicating or gathering from this is that we have to structure society in such a way where everybody belongs. And I think we've in a meritocracy, it's not really like that. It's like, the cream rises to the top, and the aristocracy rules, or whatever. And I'm not, I guess, against people getting their due, and if you're the best at a thing, you should get what you're due, whatever. I'm not against that. But what happens to everyone else? Like, how do we care for everyone? If somehow the nerds and the dropouts and the failures and the blah 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 whatever's, they if somehow we had a way to integrate them into, you know I guess, the norm or whatever, the mainstream or whatever, then they would be less likely to fall to uh, Marxism. I think this is a pretty obvious point. I don't think, I think people can kind of see that. Um, how do I do this? I think I'm going to move over to something else here. Oh, man, I should have put a fan on. It's hotter than hell. I'm going to open a window here in a second. Hold tight. Can look at this girl's ass while I do that. Okay. What is this? Hold on. All right. Um, from a subjective point of view, pretty much everyone I know is like damaged, from relationships in some way, and or maybe they come from, a broken home and they have trust issues. There's so many fucking problems. Um, but it seems to me that this is a discussion we got to have. I like the idea of trying to tune into, what they call the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and which are more or less the principles of gender in nature, and looking from that lens, looking back at ourselves and saying, what is masculine, what is feminine. When I teach kung fu, I frequently refer to yin and yang, to, like, empty and full, open and closed, release, capture, going against something, moving with something. There's all these sorts of little things that occur, that fit into, like, the Taoist way of explaining things. And when you're physically using it in these kind of, you know martial arts patterns, what have you, then you literally physically feel it, and you're like, oh wow, I get it, like, I get it. So I don't know, how could that be applied somehow in what we're talking about? Fascinating question. Very, very interesting question. Let's suffice to say that, like, all things have these kind of uh, patterns, night and day, life and death, winter and summer, um, rich and poor, on and off, um, up and down. It's like male and female, and I don't know. There's something to it. So if somehow or other we could align with that flow in a kind of a Tai Chi way, just my way of talking about it, then perhaps we could regain balance, because I think that's what we don't have. Like there's an overabundance of femininity, and that's unhealthy for society. So this is a thing. This is what we're recognizing. You can see obviously in the the white identity movement, masculinity is a really important thing. We know, we see all day every day how masculinity is under attack, and the patriarchy. You see what I'm saying? It's demonized, But perhaps the perfect society really would be one in which there was a balance of divine masculine and feminine. How do we attain that? That's a pretty good philosophical and sociological question, I think. So, what do we got? Jason is here. Welcome, Jason. How you doing? Let me read some comments. Luke says the best answer to how to run a society, in my opinion, is from William Gailey Simpson. In which way, Western man, aristocracy, but also respect for the workers. Um, I'm sure I have a general sense of what you mean by aristocracy. It's funny how like the No Kings protest is like a thing. You know what I mean? Like no kings. It's like, well, we America never had a king, so I don't know what you're protesting against. But I do agree with this concept of a sort of an aristocratic class, ruling class, within a third position framework. You see, so that would, for me, only be acceptable if such a king um, were literally would make a type of a blood oath to serve the people under penalty of like death by torture or something. You see what I'm saying? Like I like the dedication to the country and the folk, or the volk, would be like a monk, like a priest. You see what I'm saying? It would be a sacred duty, not Donald Trump. You know what I'm saying? There would not be any kind of like vulgarity to it at all. It would literally be a sacred duty. Um, in such a case, I think that the mythology of having a king would be a profoundly positive thing for a people. If they could see themselves reflected in such a king, you know, who lived in such a way as to be like an absolute model of what man should be, in every way. Now you're talking. To me, that's kind of the philosopher king, I suppose. I don't know. I suppose Nietzsche might have something to say on the topic. I don't know. I'd have to look that up. But I think this is going to have to be a flat shadow here. Excuse me. It seems to me like we're miles from that, though. You know what I mean? Like we're pretty far away from that. As a people. Um, It's always a commercial that has to stop me. I'm sorry. Hold on. All right. Try native hair care and join thousands of happy humans who try shutting up. It's shut up. Okay. And we're back. Wow, what a professional show. Jason says, what's the story behind the scenes you're working on? So, this is hard to see. Wow, dude. This story is really complicated, but I'll try to. Okay, so here's our hero. He's the hero of the story. He has this kind of golden nanobot tech suit that can take any shape, and he's created this little boat for himself. He just escaped these villains, and he stole this mystical cross that they have that can summon an angel to do their bidding. The angel is Deus Vult, and so he escaped them, and he's kind of floating around at sea, and he's sort of contemplating, like, how do I use this? How do I, I can't. I keep saying the magic words, but it doesn't summon the angel, and I really could use some help in this big battle against the evil bad guys or whatever. So he's kind of contemplating that, and then out of absolutely nowhere, comes this mermaid who somehow, even more magically, he went to college with. And so she pops out of the water, and he's like, what? And so there's a little bit of a sexy half naked mermaid scene ensuing. um and that's that. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense if you don't know, like, the whole story, I guess. um if you're new to the Alliance, the characters are largely representations of different political memes. And like, this is Uber Chad. There's Clown World. There's Karens. There's Fembots. There's Chuds, Grugs. Groipers and Tradcats, and all kinds of different political culture memes that and influencers. Um, that if you've been paying any attention and you're part of the internet culture, you would know those things. So, but imagine them as superheroes and supervillains in a graphic novel. So that makes for a really, really wild ride. A lot of cool, fun, and interesting topics and themes. Fun for the whole family. So let's read on. What's the story? Okay. I'll give it a look. I found an audiobook version on Odyssey. Oh, Chatelet, welcome to my friend Flash. Great to have you. It's a great read. Simpson writes with a lot of nuance. I don't do it justice with my clumsy words. Chatelet so hard. Okay, Luke says yes. Carolyn Emmerich talks a lot about sacral kings who can be taken out if they fail their people. Right. Craig is here. Hey, Craig. Good to see you. I don't actually read much Nietzsche. Mostly I just listen to Uber Boyo. um, Nietzsche's heavy as heck. I mean, he's. It's almost like you need a translator, I would say. Um, Most of what I know about Nietzsche is through influencers that I've followed over the years. I did have what do you call it? Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and read that in college. Um, and that was a pretty big influence on me back then. I actually made a poster in my dorm room where went to, like, the college store and got a poster of Superman, and then I wrote quotes from Nietzsche all over it that came from Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And people would come into the my dorm room and be like, "Oh wow, what's that?" And I try to explain it to them, and they have no idea who Nietzsche is or any of that stuff. So all the work I put into that was for naught. I didn't impress anybody other than myself. What are you gonna do? A true Sigma male. There you go. This music is kind of funny with this image. Um, anyway, let's get some shadows going here. What's new, guys? What's new and exciting? I've been off a couple days. I had a birthday. I had a wonderful birthday weekend. I had a date on Friday, which was wonderful. Saturday, I went out with my crew. It's kind of a special event. Some DJs that I like, and blah blah blah. Good times, fun, fun, fun. I danced for 4 hours. I went to two different clubs, and like that's just great. I just had a lot of fun. And then Sunday was family day with my son. We carved a Halloween pumpkin and did some family tradition kind of stuff. Good father son time. Felt really good. Gave me some happiness. Um, yeah, just connected with some people. And today I was dead exhausted though. I think something about the weekend just knocked the crap out of me. It was a good weekend, but super tired today. Whatever. I got my little nap in after work, and I'm back on track here, doing that thing. Hello, Craig. Damn, I always run into mermaids from college. Yeah, I know. Right. I don't like much read, but Nietzsche was a life changer for sure. I need to reread Zarathustra. I would understand more of it now. I first read it in high school and didn't get it. Um, I came to it after my trip with Buddhism. And so the idea I mean, it's not Buddhist, but the idea of like a man who lives alone from society and figures shit out and is sort of like misunderstood or persecuted because, and Buddha didn't undergo like persecution or whatever, but um, the trope, I guess, is something that I could get, if that makes sense. A trope is probably a terrible word for this, but anyway, um, it's definitely something I need to revisit. There's these phases that he talks about where man is like a baby, and then he's like a camel, and then he's like a lion or something like that. I have to kind of go back and research the meaning of that again sometime, the meanings of those things. Um, he's a truly exceptional thinker. I'd say probably the most important thinker of the modern time. You know, um, I'll leave that to the real philosophers to give an exposition on that. What I do like about it, though, what I must say is what I feel is vital to his work and to our movement is the notion of self actualization. self-actualization. So what does that mean? I mean, this is a big topic. In the simplest terms, choosing who you are and what you are, and choosing your own narrative and your own destiny and becoming a kind of a self-made man per se. Um, there's very much of life that kind of happens to us, and then we fall into a kind of an existential malaise over such things. Like, why do these bad things happen to me, and how do I gain success or control or this or that. And I think self-actualization also has something to do with Nietzsche's views against Christianity. Um, and that's a deep rabbit hole that I'm not really qualified to talk on. I know the spirit of it, but it's not something I don't think I could talk about and represent Nietzsche, you know, in a true academic form. Um, Again, leave that to the professionals. Um, of course, I've got my own thoughts on the matter. Um, I have like a friend. He just got certified to be a pastor, and I would say to him things like, you know what, they should take the Old Testament out of the Bible. Because like that would be true Christianity. And he balks at that, right? It's like, oh my God, like only you could say that, Don. Like that kind of a thing. And to me, like, there's nothing controversial at all about saying that. Like, I feel like there's I know this crowd. I know what your thoughts are on the matter. So, like, I don't want to pull up scabs or turn this into some big heated thing. But there's a lot to contemplate. Let's just put it that way. My views have always been that Christ is a Buddha. He's just a different Buddha. There's a lot of Buddhas. There's there's no man or institution that is the go between you and God, and that a Christian would be someone who is a Christ figure, is someone who knows how to walk on water and turn water into wine and heal the sick, and produce miracles. Of course, that's a pretty radical thing to say, I know. But I'll just leave it out there and see what happens. Yeah, let's just see what happens with that one. Um, this is an interesting character, like having a golden suit. It's just this metallic suit that's like, how do you draw metal? And I looked at a lot of like Iron Man and Silver Surfer for a certain kind of graphic techniques to make it make sense visually and make it aesthetically interesting. So there you go. And the colorist helps a lot. I can't take these fucking commercials anymore. I gotta get new music. Like literally every 30 seconds there's a stupid commercial on. Like, come on, man. I'm trying to run a show here, folks. High school. Congratulations. Happy 29th birthday, bro. Thanks, dude. You just doxed my age, though. I can't believe you just did that, bro. Oh, well. Whenever people ask me, how old are you? I said, I'm not very good with math. Mm-hmm. Um, it's like my only boundary. It's my only thing where I'm like, I've just discovered, especially the younger people are, the weirder they are about age. They're very people. I don't know what the problem is, but they have very weird hangups about it. When I was in my 20s, if and I was going to college, and there were older people at college, and I was friends with them, and I'd go to their houses and their parties and do things and learn things. And I'm like, why would I just want to be friends with people my age? What the fuck am I going to learn from them? You want to be around older people. They're wiser. And that's a thing. It's a thing. But now it's like, I don't know, they treat you like you're their high school teacher or some shit. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. And fuck off with that bullshit, man. Come on. you know it's just weird and annoying. But anyway, what else have I got? So yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'd probably just change the topic here. Happy birthday. Thank you. That's awesome. Happy birthday. What else we got here? The date was wonderful on Friday, by the way. They say that Schopenhauer had a deep respect for Buddhism. It seems to have helped him unleash his inner chud. That's my man, Schopenhauer. Sorry, I'm acting silly. Um, for some reason, I thought self actualization was from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Probably is. I think that I mishmash these things together with my own knowledge base. I've like, there's so many different forms of psychology and philosophy and religion that utilize similar things, and but they just are called different names. You know what I'm saying? um um yeah, so I'll just stop there. I think that's fair enough. Yeah, the thing about the date though is that, like, I've learned enough by now to be like totally non-attached, to be like, even as great as it went, just don't have any expectations at all, because like the younger they are, the easier they are to just flake the fuck off. And it's just like, it's the way it is. I don't know if it's a generational thing. um but they do this. I think that's part of that kind of, maybe that comes back to the topic we were talking about women, and maybe like female privilege or something, if you want to call it that. um so for example, I've had, not just me, my friends and I will be, out on the club scene or whatever, and like, hey, yeah, just check out that girl, gave me her number, oh my god, oh, hey, congratulations, da, da, da. And then like a week later, he'll be like, I texted and called, and she never answered. And we would, we're not laughing, but we're like, fucking women, like, why the fuck would you give me your fucking number, you dumb bitch, if you were gonna like do this? You see what I'm saying? That's like, that's just, I don't care if you're male or female. That's just like fuckery. It's fuckery, okay? And it's like, but to me, it seems like women just have like unlimited free passes. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't have to be accountable. And like, as soon as you try to make us accountable, then we are oppressing us. And I'm like, fuck you. So that's kind of why I have like super low expectations. It's awful, but you learn that, you know, after a while, I guess. It's pretty harsh to say that, but that's my experience. Okay, moving on. For some an accusation, there's an odd theory that says Buddha and Jesus were the same person. Interesting, but I don't believe it. Neither do I. However, I mean, there's that problem with Christianity where a lot of it was stolen from other resources, Mithraism and ancient Egypt, and there's bits and pieces that are cobbled together from those other religions, philosophies. But as for Jesus himself, I believe he's a historic person. Um, to the best of my knowledge, I mean, no, the very, 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 very first thing to say is that whites don't need a Jewish God. Whites have our own gods. We don't need a Jewish God. So, how I look at it is who in our pantheon, who in our history is a spiritual leader, and then that opens up a massive can of worms. Like how far back do you want to go? Because it's arguable that Buddhism is white. The Buddha was in the scriptures. He's referred to as the Great Aryan. He had blue eyes. His ancestry was from Iran, and 2,500 years ago, almost 3,000 years ago, Iran was not what it is today. So it's most likely he was Scythian, at least to some extent. You see where I'm going with this? Like, if you want to go back like 5,000 years or more, who I know I'm making it more and more complicated, but like these I think are good questions. I got all the good questions. Yeah. Moving on. Wow, you are very young for someone so well accomplished. I'm not, okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna let that float. I don't. I never say how old I am. One day I'll come out and show my face and go full mask off one day, and then people will be like, "Holy shit! I didn't know you were 95 years old. You sound so young. You're like the hippest octogenarian, septuagenarian. No, I don't. What's a 90? What would you call that? 80-year-old. Anyway, I'm not that old, but my point I was making before is just that, like, I've discovered that they put you in little boxes. It's like, oh, you're that old, therefore I must think of you this way and treat you this way and behave this way towards you. And to me, I'm like, how about just treat me according to who I am as a person rather than the number of years that I've lived? To me, does that make sense? I mean, am I crazy for expecting that or asking that of people? Is that weird? I mean, I'm not 15. That's quite a difference. But does that make any sense to anybody, or am I just alone out here in my thinking, as usual? This music sounds like doctor's office music. I'm gonna have to switch it. Have you tried the new drug for something? Side effects might be. Ask your doctor if it's right for you. Yeah, I gotta change this music. It's too silly. Hold on. Oh, come on, something good. There we go.
In the last 4 years of the Bobby Kit, we always had one exclusive product, but this year I wanted 5.
Oh, a little bit of jazz. Can't go wrong with jazz. Oh, gotten a big debate with Richard Spencer. He hates jazz, so we had to have. It was in just goofing around, but it was kind of funny. All right, what's next? Okay. For some reason, to treat a 29-year-old like a high school teacher is ridiculous unless they're just view you as a wise and knowledgeable. Well, I mean, there's 29-year-old high school teachers. I think it depends on the mentality of the person you're talking to. Like, that's why I said earlier that the younger people are, the weirder they are about age. Um, but it does matter. I mean, it's something. It's not like nothing. But I just prefer to have as few limitations put on me as possible. I don't like kind of being judged, I guess. I don't like being put in a place where it's like, oh well, you can't say or do that because you're that much old or whatever. To me, that's fucking stupid. You know. But people act that way and they don't even know it. They're like, well, I'm too old to go have fun now. I better stay home and watch TV like everyone my age. It's like, okay, enjoy wasting away into nothing. Anyway. Wise, knowledgeable, unlike most high school teachers. Okay. Most Christianity's morality and philosophy is from Greece. There you go. Dude, low expectations are better than having your hopes shattered. I think they got us with all these rom-coms and Disney bromance or Disney romance bros. Um yeah, there's a lot of weird, like, what kind of expectations women have of men. I think it depends on the phase of life that they're in. It's like, in as far as I can tell, like, women in their 20s are really just, it's just party, party, party. They just want to travel and party. They don't want to settle down or do anything serious. Women, as they get to their 30s and are in their 30s, are hot and heavy looking for a man. They're like, I got to get a man. I'm a failure if I don't get a man. Or if the opposite of that is they're lesbians and or cat moms, dog moms with like dreadlocks and fancy soaps and crystals. You know what I mean? They're like, okay, now I'm going to go all in on liberal lunacy, because I'm so free. I'm that friend who's really, really free. I do yoga in the park. I only use I drive a certain kind of car, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is like tropes basically. Um but there's a thing there, and like women in their 30s, they can be very, very competitive, very, very, like, oh boy, I can't tell you how many times I've been like cock blocked basically by women that, their good friend likes me and I like her and we're compatible, and we start seeing each other and it starts to look like it's going somewhere, and then they step in and they fuck it up. They say something to the girl to scare the shit out of her and turn her off, and then like overnight the thing's over. It's just like suddenly, with no fucking reason, it's over. But there is a reason, and you can see the friend who like ruined it will gloat about it. She'll post on social media in like not so subtle terms about, oh well, I think that this kind of person should not date that kind of person, and this person's too old for that person, and therefore what's blah 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 blah. So it's fucked up. And I have a thing, I don't know how to say this, like, there's been times where I would start dating a girl, and as we're in that sort of get to know you phase, somehow or other, her friends will come up. Oh my God, you should meet my friend. She's so cool. And then I'll say something along the lines of like, well, I'm not dating your friends. And then I get a really weird look, like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, and then I say, like, if I have to pass an interview that your friends decide whether or not you're going to date me, then I let's just walk away right now, because I don't have to qualify to these women. And that shows the fucking balls that I've got to say, like, I can leave you at any fucking second if I want to, because I'm not a goddamn puppy. I'm not some kind of little like status toy for you and your friends to, like, walk around and ambulate or something and make some kind of show out of. In one case that ended the dating immediately, and then in another case it actually was good. It was one of these, like, yeah, wow, fuck that, you're right. Like, why the fuck why would I let my friends tell me, well, I like him or I don't like him, or, well, you can find better, or it's like, can you imagine going to your buddies and saying, hey guys, I want to get your approval on this girl that I'm dating. Now, granted, if she's like a psychotic monster, we're your buddies. We're gonna tell you. We're gonna be like, dude, you got to be out of your mind. Like, she's gonna hurt you. That's what a good buddy will do. But other than that, like, you don't ask your friends to decide for you on such a thing. It's crazy. I don't know. To me, that's insane. But from a woman's perspective, that's normal. It's a phase. It's like, okay, I've been with you long enough. Now it's time for you to meet my friends. Oh, we're in phase two. It's like, well, fuck your friends. I mean, I'm being a little harsh here, but, like, yeah, can I get a holler or something? I mean, does anybody understand this or relate to this? Does it? Because you feel like you're on display. You're at the poodle show. Okay, walk in a circle, impress everybody, make them laugh. Like, well, I'm not here for you. I don't know. Maybe I should pick a better caliber of woman. Anyway, so that's an experience. Let's move on. We got Christianity is not our culture expression. We just project our own expressions onto it and perceive to mean what we think and perceive to. I get what you're saying. I know what you mean. It's a foreign religion that we've made our own. You know what I mean? In our with our architecture, our music, our holidays. The two things have merged. If, for example, Christianity never was or became like the state religion due to Constantinople, and I don't know, some other, like, paganism survived, or maybe the Greco-Roman pantheon became the state religion, how different would we be today? That's a very interesting idea. Very deep. Um, Craig says, by we, I mean white people, yes. Craig says, I think what your expectations are based on, and if you're not a hypocrite about it, that's a little more important than just how high or low the expectations are. Well, at this point, my expectations are zero. They're basically like, she might change her mind tomorrow. There's nothing. There's nothing to hold on to. Everything is just pure air. It's just fucking water in your hands. There's sand, grains of sand in your hands. It could just float away any minute. Depending on moods and moods and moods and moods. And I'm like, well, so it obviously indicates that I need a more mature woman, which would generally be an older woman. How old, I don't know, but because I don't think maturity and age are exclusive. which is part of my whole point that I'm making about age. But okay, so yeah, let's get back to that. So like, as you do get older, then a lot of them are married. And then as you get even older, then they're divorced. And divorced women, in my experience, are some of the most bitter. Holy shit! They're unhinged. Like they don't give a fuck anymore. Like they don't give a fuck anymore. They will. It's just straight up like, what are you gonna give me? It's just straight up. What do you have for me? You're literally just. I mean, it's weird and disturbing. But let's move on here. No, I've done a lot. You've made some ripples. You co-founded White Art Collective, and your music. I'm losing something here. Expectations. Craig says to me, "You have done a lot. You've made some ripples. You co-founded White Art Collective, and your music showed my ex-co-workers it's okay to jam out white positive music, white American music. Cool. I really appreciate you saying that and showing them. That's fabulous." And that it can sound good. Very good. You should check out Luke's music. This stuff regarding women and their sabotaging behavior is so common. There's always someone in her ear. So the term you just used, sabotaging, getting back to the interview again, it's on my Telegram. I don't know. I should try to post it on my other social media. It's really good. She specifically points out that the method or the tool with which women control each other is sabotage, and that could be through lies, through gossip, whatever means necessary. They will sabotage. So I was just talking about how, the friend of the girl that I was getting close to, she sabotaged our relationship and she intimidated the girl. She literally, like, it was like, I like, you can't be friends with me if you're with him, kind of thing. And she backed down. This girl backed down. There it is, and there you go. It's just, I can't for the life of me imagine saying to a friend, like, if you're gonna go out with that girl, then, you know forget about calling me. That's so gay. It's really fucking gay. And I believe me, I have had friends that had like vicious, terrible wives and girlfriends that I've said to them millions of times, like, dude, you need to fucking divorce this bitch. She's just causing you nothing but misery. You don't have kids. Get out while you can. You're an idiot for staying here. Oh well, da, 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 da. Another guy, his girlfriend of so many years, smashed a glass in his face and split his lip wide open, like wide open, and he's got a scar in his face for life now because of this. And the reason why is because he reconnected with an old friend on Facebook who he went to high school with. Zero romance, but she was a girl, so therefore competition, therefore I have to split your fucking face open. You see what I'm saying? Now that's exceptional. I'm not saying all women are violent or something stupid like that, but still, it's like, and I had to like literally like yell in his face, like, stop it, stop doing this to yourself, like, stop being a fucking maniac, like, stop. I hate to see people, men or women, in these type of abusive relationships. It's really quite brutal. I was in one. I hate to tell you that, but that's true. I have, you know, photographs to prove it for court, that kind of shit. But anyway, not the fun stories to tell. So moving on. I can't relate because I don't care about dating women. Okay, there you are. Uh, Honestly, bro, I envy you for being able to not care about femoids. So I think that is, at least that's the big like manosphere advice right now, is this like the stoic manosphere thing. There's a lot of like coaches out there, like dating coaches and manosphere coaches, and stoicism is what they're selling. The idea that like, and I'm not against it. I don't mean to sound like I'm poo-pooing that. I actually do agree with it, to the extent where that we're in control of our emotions, not the other way around, but not to the extent where we're fucking heartless and dead inside. I don't, that's not, to me, that's not the goal, is to like remove your humanity, like cut that part of your brain out that has feelings. That's not, I don't think going in the extreme is the answer either. But definitely this stoic thing is right in line with what we should be thinking and doing. And yeah, I've just discovered that the less attached you are, the more, I don't want to say power, but the more control you exert in a relationship. Um, there's this weird kind of like shit tests that you go through, where it's like, okay, if he's too romantic and likes me too much, then he's a loser and I don't want him. He's too sensitive, he's too weak, you know. And that's counterintuitive to a man. A man's like, I'm trying to show you how much I love you and how dedicated I am to you. So it's like you wonder why men don't have the highest opinion of women, because it's like they counter signal the good in us that is trying to do good. They reward the assholes. A friend of mine was saying, like, why is it that like the hottest women, they date like the biggest douchebags? Like, why, how come the biggest assholes get the hottest women? And I was like, in my view, to answer that question, how I answered that question is I said that it's a form of, these particular, because not all women do that, but these particular women see these asshole men as being able to push around other men, and therefore they have power. Being nice is not how you gain power, and if they have power, they have money and status. And so being a fucking douchebag, loser, piece of shit, asshole is super hot to like these kind of women. um and that's the theory anyway. I didn't make up that theory. I remember reading that somewhere or whatever. But I find it to be probably true. I mean, I would say that I find it believable. um I think women could comment on that and leave some comments. That would be an interesting thing. I always like to get comments. Um, Care about paganism is a bio-spiritual expression of white people. We would have a stronger grip on our collective identity and structure of Western civilization. I strongly agree. I did shout to Luke Mason too. Okay. Kolovrat says, my mom taught me that I should focus on myself far more than care about dating women. Well, that's good advice. I think my mom for teaching me that. That's a very, very strong lesson. Luke says, like an awesome mom. Yes, indeed. Craig says, and they are like that over trivial things to judge. White people protect or project stoicism onto how we perceive Christianity. What I have noticed is that women who are the most brutal when rejecting guys tend to get the most upset and hysterical when they get rejected themselves, no matter how polite you are about rejecting them. Wow. Out on the club scene, there's a lot of like women that are way out of my league. Let's be honest. And I don't know what it is, but like they've fawned over me. And I'm not bragging. This is not a braggy thing. This is like, I think I'm older than them. And so they probably see me as like, safer. Like it's okay to hug him and fall all over him because we're not really going to be in a relationship. And I can just kind of enjoy that or whatever. That's how I see it. But the other thing too is I do give them a little bit of the rejection thing. I do a bit of that, and it works. Yeah, it works. Like when you're kind of like nonchalant about like you don't respond to the flirting, then they flirt harder because it's like how dare you? I'm the alpha female. Like every man has to bow in front of me. And if you're like, yeah, whatever, then like it's a game, the game of love. Um. Anyway, as long as you're not taking it too seriously, it can be kind of fun. But yeah. Um. So many ideas, so many thoughts. What's crazy is when you get like a girl on the internet who's like, lives far away and, you know, wants to have a fling with you or a long distance love relationship. And you're like, this can't work. We're in different countries. But man, I wish it could work. You know what I mean? Like those are heartbreaking. Um, so close, but yet so far. So close, but yet so far. Um, so this is the last page in. We break this up into like 12-page issues, and this is the last of this current issue. So the next issue is the last one. We are in the home run, boys. We're home stretch. We are in the home stretch, boys. So it's pretty wild. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and this will be the last. I think the next one is going to be longer, like not 12 pages. It might be 15 pages or more. I don't know yet. But wow. And then it's, get it out by Christmas and get the marketing machine rolling and start and become a millionaire. So, what am I going to do with all my money? You guys, can you help me out? Like, after I become a millionaire from this graphic novel, what am I going to do? I would say that I would definitely want to start a legitimate business where I'm hiring uh, artists to do various media related work, create some kind of business where we're getting paid. Um, Hard to say exactly what that would be, or straight out of my head right now, but um, I think reinvesting back into the community like that would be brilliant, because there's so many like, oh man, if I only had the money, I would do A B C D F G. You know, I could have like such a bigger impact had I the resources. Um, th- uh, Colovrat says I should really get off my lazy ass and write my book. Yes, please do. Please do. Don't be lazy about that. Get that thing going, bro. Big time. Get her going. I have. I'd like to write my own biography. To be honest with you, my life story is so insane, so insane. There's a lot of just like amazing, glorious things, but then there's massive tragedies and terrible things too. But for one lifetime, it's kind of insane all the stuff that I've been through. It's really insane, to be honest with you. Um, a lot of it would be kind of like, whoa, you know. What I mean by that is like, talking about explicit relationships that I had and things like this that I would that be part of the part of the book. Um, the most businesses in our community don't hire people, just work for themselves. My life is well. I don't want to share a lot of it, though, including the most interesting parts of my life. Okay. Um, Mr. Kolovrat, I forget your other name because it's not in front of me and I'm juggling 10 things at the moment. But what? Tell me about this book that you want to write. Let's hear about it. I think probably the main theme or focus of my biography would be the contradiction of where I came from and where I am now. Like, how did I become Donald Kent based on my background? Um, that's kind of wild. It's a wild and somewhat mysterious thing in a sense. Like, how do you come up in this super multicultural, liberal education, um, and then turn into a guy that, you know, has dedicated so much of his life to the cause to stop white genocide? Um, there's so much that the media never covers. Like, they'll never ask us directly what we think and why we think it, why do we hold the views that we have, because they don't want to give us a fair shake. They don't want people to agree with us, so they have to demonize us. They have to put us in a in a bucket, so to speak, and like, oh, we're in this information ghetto. When I met this dude over the weekend and I told him I'm far right, like the look on his face was like, oh my god, like I've only ever read about people like you. like like I'm a legend, not me, but like far right people just exist in some kind of legendary mythology. um and I was, trying to explain in our conversation about like, stopping free speech is really more about silencing people like me. when you make up some bullshit that, like, oh, if you say, I don't know, transgender, like a transgender woman is a man, or immigrants should go home, or blah blah blah, whatever, that they claim that those words are actual violence, which is fucking madness. Like, it's just pure go fuck yourself is what that is. Like, I cannot express in the strongest terms, like, you're trying to create a world in which you can justify doing violence on me and my people by creating this. It's like, how do I say it? It's sort of like, they don't hurt you because you're fascist. They call you fascist so that they can hurt you. That's literally what that whole thing is, this whole free speech debate shit. And there's no debate. We have free speech. That's over. Question is over. It's done. And there's no, like, oh, should we take it back, or should we change it or alter it? Like, that's just Marxist horseshit. Fuck off. Um, but you get into these discussions, and, like, people are, I don't know, kind of dangerous. You got to stand up for that stuff. But anyway, back to that. How did you get from here to there? Because that, I think, would make an interesting story. That, I think, would make an interesting story. Yeah. But I feel like the story is not over yet. Like, there's still very, very much more that I've yet to accomplish, that I want to, or that I know that I can accomplish. The hardest part of life is how to be an art activist in this movement, and, you know, frankly, make a lot of money so that I can give all of that inheritance to my son, so that he can have security in the fucking dystopian future that's coming after I'm gone. And my son, meaning my grandchildren and their kids. And when my dad died, it broke the, I don't know what, the generational wealth pattern, whatever that's called. You know how your parents give money down to their kids, and their parents give to the kids, and the money passes down through generations. When my dad died, that got destroyed. And there's more to the story, much more, that would go into a biography, how that happened. This is a lot more to the goddamn story. So anyway, I'm like fucked, basically. And so there's this need to get rich before I die, so that I can give that to my son. And there's ways to get rich. You can invest your time and energy into the stock market, or various business ventures, blah 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 blah. Everybody and their uncle's got a fucking scam to sell you. You know what I mean? But I guess the insanity of it is that I somehow want to do it on my terms, doing what I do. Like, and so, like, when I say get rich, I don't mean it in the like the douchebag way. Like, I'll never have a yacht in Miami or something. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, that's not what I would do with the money. Like I said, I would start a business and hire our people, and to do something that would help the movement. And grow money that way. Help get everybody rich. You know what I mean? Get everybody rich. You know, bring in resources to our movement. You know, that's another way in which the left is more successful than us. Is they know how to move money around in such a way as to employ their own people. And granted, a lot of them are fucking, scumbag criminals, and they use the system and this and that, whatever. But they still have access to all the money. They're the ones who get all the grants, and do this, that, and the other thing. It's not us. So let's see if there's any more comments. My life as well. I don't want to share a lot of Rexus Prime. I'm sorry, Rexus. Get that in your head. Rexus. A lot of the most radical conscious people come from multicultural backgrounds. Interesting point. Rexus says, I'm 16 pages into it, but it's about a little character called Midnight Angel, and he is broken, seeking revenge against those who tortured him to the point where he's mentally ill. MK Ultra. Craig says, I think anti-white slurs should be illegal. Whoa. Well, that's I like your attitude, buddy. Protecting ourselves from our speech being used against us isn't defending the speech, but defending our framework, which does involve speech. So, Rexus says he suffers from clinical vampirism. Ooh, I call it vampiric psychosis. In the book, it also rolls off the tongue better. Yeah, that's cool. Instead of clinical vampirism. Is clinical vampirism like a real thing? It just sort of sounds like it. That's weird. I don't know anything about that stuff. Or do I? Sorry. A little Halloween humor. Craig says, I'm not trying to get rich before reproducing or even passing my wealth itself down to my kids, but rather create the structure and source of wealth for the entity remain in the family. Okay. Reserves incomes. What if your art continues to sell long after you pass, but while your family still lives on? Well, certainly that's a thing. Honestly, the way the Overton window is moving, by the time I'm dead or dying, this movement might actually go mainstream. You know what I'm trying to say? And like the work that I've done for it could have a place in history, and that would be a dream come true for me. Like that would be so profoundly fulfilling. I can't even describe, There's a lot I can say that's just like at this point in time would just be sort of like conjecture. You know what I mean? I'll be honest with you. I'm at a weird place right now. And I just had a birthday. I'm thinking a lot about where I'm at, where I've been, where I've come from, where I'm going, all of that. I think a lot like that. And so like this issue is an issue that I'm thinking about. But there's also the kind of like I'm tired, I'm burned out. I am sick of the same thing over and over and over. And I've been saying that for a while, so that's not really a new message. But the question is, well, what is fresh and new? What would be uh, meaningful and inspiring and get you back in the game in such a way as to, you know, I would have the motivation to do the work, but also I could make money from it, and so on and so forth. So I've been doing a huge amount of business research on this topic, to be honest with you, and a ton of planning. Over the years, I've excuse me, I've tried a lot. I've tried to get people involved in all kinds of plans, and I just couldn't. It just never worked, and it's heartbreaking that those ideas failed. But at the same time, like, I don't regret doing that, and I would say that in many ways, what I did is the foundation of what I probably will be doing. Um, I don't want to make any announcements or anything quite yet. Uh, just stupid to like say you're going to do a thing and don't do it. Right now, I'm really, really, really tied up with this graphic novel. Like, this is the focus. So that's my top priority for the moment. But I can plan, and I am planning. Got a lot of plans. When and how those things pan out remains to be seen. But um, it's it's good. It's hopeful. There's a lot of information about what to do, how to do it, how to make it profitable, how to make it effective on a cultural, a political, in a cultural and political way. Um, there's a huge amount of people behind the scenes that are involved in what I'm talking about. There's like a lot of resources involved. So, but it's kind of like my attitude has changed a lot. Like, I'm just tired of talking about the Jews. I'm tired of the negativity of everything. Um, I'm just trying to get back to like doing qigong and kung fu, and I talked about hermeticism and things like that. I'm still working on that program with my friend, um, and I'm making headway. Those things are coming together in their own way. Um, but they still need more cultivation. I'll put it that way. Um, and time, I guess. So it's all coming together, just slowly. Um, what if you are to sell long and past this? The story is dark sci-fi with horror elements. Cool. I said racially, not radically. Okay. Create foundation which serves Western art. That's in the plans, buddy. That's what I'm saying. I don't want my family to have to find new clients, customers all the time. Rather, just focus, keeping da da da. Yeah, sci-fi horror is always awesome, always fun. Always cool. I'm digging Thai Cozy Jazz Bro. Yeah, it's nice. It's got a nice moodiness to it. It's I think adding a kind of a nice atmosphere to the work. People seem to enjoy just watching me draw and listening to me talk. You know? I will say that I am thinking about a show, like doing a show, something that is closer to hello to Jason. Just me say a quick hi to Jason. But doing a show that is closer to what the White Art Collective shows used to be like. Type of. I guess I don't want to give away too much, too early or whatever. But and of course I have themes in mind. I just started looking back at everything I've ever done and trying to think like, well, how can I put it all together and mash it up together in one gigantic thing, and then like use that as a way to build community and sell my stuff. I've mentioned this on the show before. I was shocked to find out that. Oh, and then another thing too is to reach out to like the normie MAGA crowd, to bring in just normie patriots and not have this show exclusively far right. Um, that is going to remain to be seen, kind of, because the Overton window's moving pretty fast, and there's a ton of people coming to us. Um, but there's nothing like the White Art Collective, like in the old days, the shows that we used to have. I would not try to replicate that exactly. There would be no way to do that, nor would I want to do that. I have my own ideas. Um, if I'm able to pull this off, which is not a promise, then it would be very, very unique and have a lot of my ideas baked into it, if you know what I'm trying to say. For example, I would be somehow involving like 3P ideology and education. Um, and it would be fun, but also serious in a way. But definitely not, it's not going to, we're not going to talk about, the little schoolgirl that got decapitated in Denmark today. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're so burned out by that shit. And I'm not poo-pooing the news that does that kind of work. The thing is, that's all that we have. We don't have like culture shows. And I've had several culture shows. There was like Afternoon at the Museum, the one I did with Patriart. I forget what it was called. Um, of course, the show I did with Nullis. Um, and there's massive amounts of like fun, cool media out there now. People are making reels. You got AI. The shit that they're doing with AI right now is off the charts. The memes, not the memes, the videos of JD Vance as this like psychotic fat guy with long hair. I know you know. I know you guys know the memes I'm talking about. Those are hysterical, and like there's a whole culture going on right now of all that stuff, and I'm like, well, that's it's decentralized. You know what I'm saying? So I think it would be neat in some way to just, I don't know how to centralize that per se, but like I'd like to interview the people that are making those videos. You know what I mean? And get to know. And I mean, not all of them might want to or not, right? There's always people are trying to hide their identities, what have you. But I think you get the idea. It's in everything's kind of in the thought process right now. I've really said too much. I shouldn't have even said any of those things because there's really no guarantee that I can or will do those things. But at least I'm thinking about them. Um, I do sort of expect that when the alliance kicks off, that it's going to be a really big marketing boom for Donald Kent, and therefore, Donald Kent ought to have some kind of show or some sort of like, you know, media, you know. Um, there's there's more I'd like to tell you without getting into a lot of details. There's a big influencer who's a close friend, and we're gonna at least do a few shows talking about comics and the symbolism of kind of like our own symbols, our own language, our own heroes, our own mythology. Um, I just spoke to Cultured Thug about working with him more, and he's all for it. So, I'm making it's this isn't just ideas. I am actually making an effort to kind of get something going. Um, we shall see. We shall see. But as far as you're concerned, it's more of a tease right now. More of just a big tease. Um, all right, guys. Well, I do have to work tomorrow, so I think it's going to have to be wrap up time for today's show. I probably let too much cat out of the bag today with these future plans, but is she Asian mermaid? Yes, she is Japanese. She's a Japanese mermaid. The waifu. Remember the waifu meme? Your show should probably have some cool intro with your art. Oh yeah, I would have to get all that stuff hooked up. Have a good night, Donald Kent. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and sharing your thoughts. Very, very much interested in the conversation that we can have and learn from each other. Would you invite people in Sphere? For sure. Absolutely. Totally. Whoops. Yep, I'm one example of those who turn to this side of politics, though. What started that was me getting isolated by people, all because I started to notice. Now that really pushed me to this side. Yeah, yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. All right, awesome stream, bro. Hell so hard. Hey, it was only awesome because you guys were here, and thanks, Luke, for all your amazing inspiration. Excited to see how your music is coming out. I'm actually, for my birthday, I'm treating myself to a new to some music recording equipment. So it's not impossible that we might ride again, brother. So anyway, I'll leave you on that one. Happy Hallows Eve. Yes, happy Halloween. I love you guys. Take care and see you next time. Cheers.